Your Creative Force by Avianne is currently available on Global Voice Radio.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. Broadcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area, the all-new all-hit show on creativity. Hosted by international award-winning artist and entrepreneur, Avianne. You're listening to Your Creative Force. And now here's your host, Avianne.
Hi, once again, this is Avianne coming to you from the San Francisco Bay Area in California, USA. Wow, it has been such a crazy few weeks for me. I am opening my art gallery soon. I have had so many ducks to get into a row and so many different business ventures and business things that are kicking off. My head is actually kind of spinning, to be honest with you guys. But here I am grateful and I am happy to be with you today. We have a fantastic jam-packed show put together today for you. I am so grateful for everyone who helps me do this. You know, it takes so many people to put a show like this together. From those people who help with the branding to people who help me with the recording and all the technical aspects. So I am just so grateful for people who actually care and help us to put a show like this together for you. Then, before we jump into today's exciting theme for our show, I want you guys to just know how to get hold of me, how to see more of me online. And currently, I'm just going to give you 3 quick ways. My Facebook pages, everything else, those are all linked to this. So I'm not going to direct you to those. I'm going to direct you to my 2 websites and my email address. So, are you ready? My first website is takeartclasses.com. Just like that. takeartclasses.com. And you can connect with me through that website. My second website is artbyavianne.com. Avianne, artbyavianne.com. Then I also have an email address that you can get hold of me at, which is coachavianne@gmail.com. coachavianne@gmail.com. Wow, okay, so let's jump right into episode 7. And our show theme for today is a very good one. I think you guys are really going to get so much juice out of this today. It is called Breaking Approval Addiction. That is what we are working with today. Approval addiction may be a foreign concept to you, or it might be a familiar concept to you. If you're someone who super struggles with approval and you feel like you need constantly other people's approval to do what you want to do with your life, and you feel that it is holding you back, then this may be a topic that you are very aware of and engaged with. If you are not aware of this topic, I want to still challenge you, because I think you may not be aware of the fact that this rabbit hole goes pretty deep, and that inherently all of us have great potential to suffer from approval addiction. Just because needing approval and wanting approval from other people, those kinds of ways of going about life, they are very deeply ingrained in us. They're ingrained into most cultures. They're ingrained into most religions. And so it's very difficult really in society to escape approval addiction. You may have a very mild form of it that you struggle with, or you may be someone who is totally paralyzed or anxious over it. And I am here with some great news for you. Wherever you fall on the spectrum of suffering from approval addiction, we have answers. There are ways that you can combat this. There are ways that you can actually overcome approval addiction. And with that, we are going to jump right in. Okay? People have a natural tendency to seek the approval of others for what they do. We all do. But seeking approval can become a huge obstacle to us if we start to let that dictate every aspect of what we want to achieve. I want to go deeper with you into the journey of how and why, as business people, we cannot live or die by the approval of others. You know, before I go on, I want to mention something quickly. There is something that I think all of us feel at some point in our lives. And I think it's that feeling that we're just not good enough. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever struggled with that? I think in some way, shape, or form, whether it is with our health, or the way we think we look, or the way we think we speak, or the way we think we're being perceived by our peers, our family, our co-workers, our employees, our employers, whoever the case may be, I think having that feeling that we'll just not measure up, we're not good enough, right? I think we all have that feeling sometimes. And I, first of all, before we even go any further, want to reassure you about that. You're not alone. I can almost guarantee you, I would probably even be willing to bet some money on it, that even people you may be looking up to, even people you may think have it all together and are perfectly fine and have never ever struggled with these things, I can almost guarantee you for a fact they have, they are, and they do. Because I don't think as human beings we escape this. That feeling of not feeling good enough, this thing that we constantly want approval or attention or affirmation, I don't think we escape that. And I don't think that's always a bad thing. That's something we're going to get into, because when I'm talking about approval addiction, I'm not really talking about the fact that every type of approval is bad, or every kind of getting someone's permission, or every kind of attention you may be seeking. It's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? It's just that there's a very fine line between approval being something uplifting and exhorting and actually positive, and it actually being something super toxic and controlling. I think a lot of parents, without intending to do so, without even realizing at all that they're doing that, end up controlling children through making the child feel that they constantly need to fight for the approval of the parent. And the downside of this is that the child probably never feels good enough. Right? I think we can all come up with instances in our lives, in our past, even our childhood, when we did not feel like we measured up. And when we had adults, teachers or parents or other adults in our lives who made us feel worthy, who made us feel like we mattered, who made us feel like we do not constantly need their approval to succeed at something great. If we had adults in our lives like that, I want to tell you we have been lucky. I have been lucky because all through my life, even though a lot of things in my life have been kind of hard stuff for me to deal with, all through my life I have had those treasures who made me feel like I could succeed at my dreams, that I was good enough. Okay? So, what is approval addiction? Maybe that is a good place to start. Since we are young, we learn to seek the approval of others. In most cultures, it is conditioned into us that we need the approval and, in some ways, even the permission of society and our parents or authority figures to succeed in life. Now remember, I already said this. At a basic level, there is some truth to that. If nobody ever approves of us and we never submit to any rules, standards, or expectations, we will likely never amount to much in life, right? We do need a little bit of a push. We do need a little bit of a challenge. We do need to have this feeling that we want to show someone that we can do this, right? That is a natural tendency, and I think that is not in itself a bad thing. It can provide us with the drive and the will to succeed. It can help us solve problems so that we can overcome obstacles, so that we can overcome fears and failures, so that we can actually prove to ourselves and prove to society that we can achieve certain things, right? So I don't think a healthy sense of competition or a healthy sense of having expectations on our lives, those things are not bad. And I feel like a lot of people, when they're speaking about things like approval addiction, they try and say that all kinds of approval, all of it is bad. I differ, in my opinion, from that. I don't think all approval is unhealthy. I don't think it is all bad. I just think we need to know what the fine line is, and we need to learn to trust our intuition. Struggling for what we want within a system that provides us with checks and balances is not always a bad thing. The bad thing happens when we become violated, when we become held to an impossible standard, when we feel that feeling that nothing we ever do could ever be good enough. When you start feeling that, you can know that you're venturing into some very unhealthy territory. Now, without a proper system, we will face anarchy, and in anarchy, nobody can succeed or thrive. So, this whole thing about it's all just about feeling good and go with your feelings, that's not gonna help you or get you very far either, okay? I just want you to really, really hear me when I say that. You do need some sort of system. You do need some sort of challenge to succeed at life. And chaos is never conducive to achievement of any kind. If you are just drowning in the soup of your emotions, going by the seat of your pants, just kind of stumbling all over every situation, and you never hold yourself to some measure of desire to be excellent or desire to learn or a teachable spirit or any of those good things, then you are actually kidding yourself. So I don't want you guys, here's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't want you to get on this bandwagon that is kind of popular in some circles today, where people think, oh, I don't need any challenges, any approval, any permission. I can just do whatever I want and life will be great. You and I know, if you've lived a little, you will know that life kind of doesn't work that way completely. So there is a measure of achievement that is tied to approval, that is tied to receiving adulation from other people. Not just a bad thing. Okay? I just want you to keep these things in perspective, because whenever I'm bringing up a topic like this, or last time when I was speaking about, what was the topic I had, right? The one about torching the box. Whenever I am bringing up topics like this, one of the fears I have, I'm just going to be straight with you guys, is I worry that people will take what I say out of context, and then it's not going to help them. They're going to latch onto something I say, take it out of context, apply it to their lives, and end up 10 times worse. Okay, that's not what I want. So whenever I'm telling you these things, I want you to know there are many ways of viewing this, many ways of applying this, and you always need to do it with a rational, sober approach. Because if you don't, what is going to end up happening is you're going to start living in extremes. And we know that living from extreme to extreme to extreme, that is no way to live either, right? It's not going to help you move the ball in the right direction. It's not going to get you closer to scoring a goal. You have to add some perspective and balance to any topic that anyone is discussing in any podcast or from any podium anywhere. It's always helpful to do it. So, even though there are some cases where we can say, okay, these systems in societies, these ways of measuring excellence are actually not bad. They actually help us advance. They actually help us achieve our potential. Having someone who's motivating you, like a coach. A sports coach is a good example. A sports coach is not always going to tell you nice and pretty things, right? But there is a balance. That doesn't mean they have to downright emotionally abuse you to get anything out of you. But if they ask you challenging questions, if they expect you to push past your limits, you may want to do that not necessarily because you have approval addiction, but because you actually want to achieve something. So yes, I hope everything I'm saying is sinking in with you guys and really going to help you. Okay, this is the whole reason I'm doing the show, is because I feel that I can help you. I can help you by sharing with you things that I encounter, that I face, that I have to work through in my own journey as a business person. So, some systems, however, are toxic or oppressive, and there is something very toxic about living for approval if we take it too far. If we are constantly held to impossible standards, or held to standards that completely clash with our true core values or who we are as a person, then living for approval can very quickly become a very shame-based and depressing existence. I'm going to repeat that last sentence, okay? If we are constantly held to impossible standards or held to standards that completely clash with our true core values or who we are as a person, then living for approval can very quickly become a very shame-based and depressing existence. It can also become extremely confusing. Let's say you have a core value that says you are not going to go to sleep later than 11 p.m. at night, because you know that that has to be built into your core value system as a business person, as every area of your life is important to your ability to conduct business. And if you want to wake up at 6 or 7 in the morning, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready for your day and start seeing clients, you cannot go to bed later than 11 p.m. Let's say that is the thing, right? Let's say that is your thing. Now, some client comes out of nowhere, maybe they're in a different time zone, and they absolutely expect of you to meet with them every single day, 1 a.m. in the morning. Okay? Can you see how if you are so addicted to their approval that you are willing to compromise that, you are basically going to end up throwing away everything else, because you are going to be so tired, you're going to be so impossibly out of your mind, exhausted by the time you have to deal with your other clients during the day, that this is going to mess you up. So you need to ask yourself, do I really need their approval, or can I draw a boundary here? Can I say no? Right? How to say no? I need to draw a boundary. I need to tell this person, I'm sorry, but I cannot do this. Can you see how this works? It all ties together with torching the box. It all ties together with putting down healthy boundaries. These are all things we've already discussed in previous shows, so I really recommend that you go and listen to episode 1 through 6 that come before this. We are in episode 7, and today's theme is breaking approval addiction, if you just joined us. Okay, so approval addiction develops when we start feeling that we have to please people to the point of denying ourselves just in order to survive or be loved or be accepted. And that is very destructive to our hearts. You have to understand, because you've probably experienced some degree of this, that you had to seek approval from others as a child, this is a little bit ingrained into you. This is tied to your child's heart. This is something very sensitive, something very precious and powerful when people actually recognize you for who you are and actually really see you for who you are, right? So this is really awful if someone taps into that space inside of your heart and just stomps all over it, right? So there is a little bit of a guard that you need to protect yourself from falling into approval addiction, right? And there's little warning signs that you can recognize. If you start feeling very shamed and depressed around a certain person or a certain situation, if you feel like you have to constantly deny yourself just so you can survive the situation or be loved or get through the trenches of the situation, then you can know something is not right. And that's what I meant when I said earlier, a few minutes ago, that you need to learn to trust your intuition. This all is tied back to your creative force. Remember that. These things that I'm sharing with you all come out of my creative force that I live from, that is telling me, that small, still voice. Remember, we were speaking about this, that voice that keeps telling you, no, do this, go there, be careful, watch out, look here, look there. These little treasures, that's your creative force really talking to you, okay? So you don't want to feel constantly depressed. You don't want to feel constantly shamed and constantly ridiculed. You don't want to feel like your heart is being destroyed every time you say something or do something. You want to live your potential, right? So when you start living in a reality where nothing you are and nothing you do will ever be good enough, then you need to take a step back. And this is where I need to also just quickly stop and say something else to you. Only you can end approval addiction. You have to understand that the people who are part of the problem, it could be a coworker, it could be your parents, it can even be someone in your family, like a child or a spouse that are very close to you, if you do not take control of the situation, if you do not address that, if you do not detach yourself from that, then you cannot blame them. Okay? You have to first resolve it. You first have to maybe deal with the root cause of why you feel so addicted to this person's approval. You need to make sure that this person knows and understands and respects your boundaries. And if you need to go with them to counseling to achieve these goals, please do. Like I've said in episodes before, I am not a counselor. I am not a therapist. So I cannot counsel you or give you any therapy or any advice beyond just telling you that if you are experiencing some toxicity in the area of approval addiction, you need to help yourself. And if need be, and if it's possible, you need to get help for the person involved and you need to sort it out. Do whatever you need to sort it out. Okay? And then, before we end part 1 of today's episode on approval addiction, I want to say something very clearly to you because you, I believe, need to hear this. You do not need anyone's approval to live your potential. As long as you are not a child, not doing illegal or unethical things, and are not harming anyone, including yourself, you do not have to have anyone's permission or explain yourself to anyone. You have the fullest right to live your potential in any way you see fit, as long as you are respectful, reasonable, and lawful about it. Always remember that. You never want to go about living your convictions, living your potential, living free from approval addiction, only caring about what you think and not really paying too much unhealthy attention to what others think. You do not want to do all that in such a way and to such a degree that you end up actually doing to other people exactly what you're trying to not have them do to you, right? So you have to come at this from a very self-aware place, from a place of being able to take a step back and put yourself still in other people's shoes and understand where they're coming from, who they are, how they are, and why, right? You still need to have always perspective on the situation, but you need to realize that if you are an adult doing your thing and you're not doing anything bad, you're not hurting anyone, you're not harming people in the process, you don't need to ask permission from people to do it. Okay? You may want your family to stand in unity with you because it will be very hard for you to achieve certain things if your family doesn't support you, right? But that is something you can work out with your family. That is something you can even sort out through counseling if you have to. But you can do it. I'm telling you, you can do it. You do not have to just sit back and take this endless approval addiction. You can fight back, but it depends on you. Approval addiction works like any other addiction. We are often unaware of it until we face the consequences of it and do something drastic to address it. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. This includes the notion that we cannot blame others or enter a state of perpetual victimhood. You have to understand that victimhood, if you choose it, see, sometimes things happen to you and you have no control. But then after a while, you kind of have to go on with your life. You have to find ways to overcome it. Because if you end up in a state of perpetual victimhood and say, I can't do this because so-and-so said this and so-and-so thinks this and my mom doesn't want me to do this and my husband doesn't approve, and you start using those excuses instead of tackling the issues, tackling the problem, tackling the root causes, then you are the one who is going to seriously lose out. You are the one who is not going to live your potential, okay? So it is on you in the end. You have to understand that. We need to face it and we need to change course. Nobody else can do it for us. And with that, I'm going to conclude part 1 of episode 7, How to Break Approval Addiction.
The broadcast that sets you on a path of inspiration and fire. You're listening to Your Creative Force. And now we return to our show with Avianne.
Okay, so we're back. And yes, in part 2, we want to go a little bit deeper into this journey of approval addiction and how to overcome it, right? So we're going to first look at how we can determine if we have approval addiction. I'm going to mention 7 ways to you. 7 ways out of many. There are probably many other ways. I've just narrowed it down to 7 very common ways of how we can know that we actually are dealing with approval addiction in our lives. And then I'm going to use little examples out of my own business journey, right? This is all centered around business, and this is all centered around living from our creative force so that we can achieve our potential. So I'm going to use examples from my own life and mention these 7 things to you. So first, what is the first way how you can determine if you have approval addiction? You will feel unsuccessful when your family and friends don't approve of your choices in career or business. Oh my word. Can I just tell you this? When I was young and I told certain people in my family that I want to be an artist, they looked at me like I was from Mars. Up until a certain point, I was about 15 or 16, and up until that point, I had aspirations to someday become a lawyer. People who know me today would find that very funny and very odd, maybe. But back then, when I was a teenager, I really thought, you know what? I've got a good head on my shoulders. I've got a good mouth. I could actually maybe be a lawyer. So that was kind of my dream. But you know what was so crazy? I had a change of heart. When I was 16, I won an art contest, and I really loved art. And I just developed this passion and love for being creative. And it was so deep for me and so profound for me that I kind of at age 16 started having this thing, you know what? I don't really want to be a lawyer. I want to be an artist. And my family thought I lost my marbles. At the time, the family member who had the most say over my life actually sent me to a psychiatrist because I told them I wanted to be an artist. I know that sounds crazy, but that's exactly what happened. So talk about needing permission or approval. I certainly did not have the approval of my family to actually make that career choice. And so your family may not always approve of your choice in career or business. You have to understand that. Now you have to ask yourself, why do they not approve if they don't approve, right? Are they not approving because what you are wanting to do is extremely dangerous? Maybe they don't want you skydiving every day if that is going to be your job, because maybe they worry about your increased risk factor of actually being harmed. So do they have valid points? And if they have some points that you can say objectively, okay, maybe there's some truth to that, right? Then you can actually disarm them by giving them the facts and saying, hey, you know, these are the facts. These are the actual statistics. These are people in this industry and in this field who are actually extremely successful, who turned it into a business, who turned it into a career, and who are actually doing what I want to do and actually making it and actually going after it. Okay, so there's always in some way, shape or form going to be a little bit of tension, because you have to understand this beautiful treasure, this wonderful creative force inside of you, this unique way that you are and that you want to be in this world. Not everyone can tap into that to the fullest. Not everyone is going to fully get it, and you're going to have to learn to be okay with that. Okay, so when you feel unsuccessful because your family and friends don't always approve of your career choices or business decisions, then you know what? In the end, so be it. You have to be true to yourself. I am very glad I can sit here and tell you, I am very glad today that back then, even in my mid-teens, I was true to myself. Okay, so the second way, how you can determine if you have approval addiction. If you do not have a huge social media following, you feel less successful than others with huge followings. Okay, that's kind of funny. In a way, it is funny to me because I am not someone who currently has a massive social media following. But you have to understand something about what I do. I work for high-end clients. I work with people who are in a certain kind of demographic. And the people I work with aren't people who typically spend a lot of time on social media. So the people who, for the most part, I join forces with are people who either kind of do their own thing online on social media, or they are people who may not have 1 million followers on YouTube and whatever, right? Because that's not the kind of industry they are in. That is not the kind of client they want to attract. That is not their goal. So it's interesting for me. There's truth to it. There's influence. There's wonderful things with social media. But I have just stopped to use it as a barometer. I do what I know I should do to promote myself, to succeed building my business step by step. I totally use social media. I totally make sure I get the right followers. But you have to understand, just looking successful online and being successful in real life, they're not always the same things. If you have 10 million likes on your Facebook page, but you are not making $1 single out of it, then I wonder how much that is worth to you, really. And how many of those people can actually be your friends, right? We can probably be friends with like 10, maybe 20 people at the most and have a meaningful friendship with them. There's no way in heck someone can have like hundreds and thousands and millions of friends and actually know them all and actually have a meaningful relationship with them all. So we really need to learn to actually be okay with it. If we see other people who have other things that work for them, things that may not be working for us, okay? So the third way that you can determine that you have approval addiction is when you get overlooked for promotions, adulation, events, media coverage, or awards for your work. And when that happens, you feel unsuccessful. Okay? I want to speak into that. If you are someone who is an introvert, who does a lot of things behind the scenes that others might not always see, you're kind of the backstage guy, right? You're not the main actor. You're kind of the backstage guy. You're the guy who makes everything work. You're very important to this whole operation, but you're not the one who gets the adulation. You're not the one who gets the applause. I want you to understand something. As long as what you are doing is moving you towards succeeding at what your potential is and what your goals are, I want you to develop a very thick skin and not really care. Okay? A lot of things out there. I live in California, so I live in the land of movie stars and famous people. I've actually been to Hollywood myself. I actually participated in a reality show during which my art was part of the show and was featured in the show. And I can tell you, from having been there and seen it up close, I can tell you that all these awards, all these adulations, all these applause, all these things that people think are so amazing and so pretty and so beautiful and so glittery and so glamorous, I can tell you that behind the scenes, if you really saw what I saw, and I was only there for 5 days, and I am sure I didn't even see a fraction of what goes on behind the scenes to record a reality show or to create a television production. And I can tell you, it was really interesting. All I can tell you is the kind of show they were recording, the people who worked on the show, most of those people were pretty unhappy, okay? I can just tell you that. There were a lot of people who got fired during the time when I was on the show. I didn't get fired. I actually enjoyed it. In my personal capacity, I had a ball. I went there with a spirit of gratitude. I can be placed in many situations and still enjoy myself, okay? I just have that kind of attitude that if I need to, I just turn into myself and I just dig up from my creative force some kind of treasure that I need to succeed in the situation, even if the people around me are going slightly ballistic, which was the case, okay? Recording a radio show or a TV show or any kind of media can be very stressful for people, and then sometimes it brings out bad character in people, and you don't always know that, and you can walk into that. And so I just want you to know that all these promotions, adulations, event, media coverage, awards, all these things that we think of as being so important and so critical, and we want the applause of other people for every little thing we achieve and every little thing we succeed at, that's not even reality. Okay, if you are serious about entrepreneurship, I want to promise you right off the bat, you are going to do maybe 100 things behind the scenes, and maybe one person will actually recognize you for one of those 100 things, if you are lucky. So if recognition is what you're after, you're going to have a tough time. And I want to tell you, having seen it in a place like Hollywood up close, it really, in the end, doesn't matter if it doesn't line up with your goals. I just want you to be really aware of that, okay? Now, the fourth way that you can know is if you are a die-hard perfectionist. This is also a very, very tough one for people to deal with, okay? I have perfectionistic tendencies, especially when it comes to my art. I am very precise, very picky. Who gets to work with me on my art, how I do my art, where I do my art, what kind of art I do. I am really perfectionistic about a lot of things regarding my creative process, regarding how I do my business. I do things a certain way. And if I cannot do them in a certain way, and if I cannot do them the way that I know works for me, then I get upset. Okay? So perfectionism is something I have to fight. And I know it's because I care. It's because I actually care. So it doesn't even come from a bad place. It's because I care. I care about what I put out in the world. I always want to do my best. Doing my best is very important to me. But sometimes if I'm not careful, I can become so overly perfectionistic, wanting everything so perfect because I may develop this fear that I'm going to fail or that people are not going to approve. And then what do? I fall right into the trap of approval addiction. And I don't want that to happen to you. I told you in the beginning when I started this radio show, this podcast series, I told you that I was going to be brutally honest with you. So I'm honest with you. Die-hard perfectionism can sometimes be a stumbling block for me. So I'm not saying this from the viewpoint of someone who has everything perfectly together. I mention this from time to time in my shows. You know, I really don't want you to think I'm telling you these things because I have all the answers or all the perfect solutions and that I do all these things wonderfully and perfectly all the time. Because I can promise you, I certainly don't. Okay, then the fifth way that you can determine if you have approval addiction is if you constantly feel irrational feelings of guilt or shame over really random things. Oh my gosh, I didn't comfort my daughter enough when she cried, or maybe I should have picked up this thing for this client, right? And we get into these things and we start worrying about things. And we drive ourselves absolutely bananas over the smallest of things. If you tend to get wrapped up in things like that, if you tend to randomly feel irrational feelings of guilt or shame, oh my gosh, you know, I should have said this to this person. If that is something you constantly battle with, you may want to look at your approval addiction levels. Okay? So that is just something I want you to be aware of. Then, number 6, no matter what you achieve, you always keep feeling that you aren't good enough or that you need to prove yourself to someone else. It's like no amount of approval can ever satisfy you. That is a huge, huge red flag, okay? Because you have to understand, if your sense of approval doesn't originate from within yourself, if your own approval is not the barometer, if you don't approve of yourself first, no amount of approval from anyone else or anywhere else is ever going to satisfy you. And you are going to become very bitter and very frustrated with your life and with your journey in business very, very quickly. So, just wanted to point that out to you guys. Then, number 7. You only feel successful when the people you care about fully get you and back what you do without any reservations. I want you to know right off the bat, right now, right here, in this place where I'm sitting, doing the show with you guys, I want you to know that nobody is ever perfectly going to understand your journey. And you just have to make total peace with that. Okay? You're going to have to make total peace with that, because that is just the reality. Only you live inside your own skin. Only you live inside your own mind. And only you can fully understand where you're at in your journey, what your goals ultimately are, and where you are going with everything. The human mind is very complex. Human desires, human passions, human potential, they are things that are interwoven into a tapestry that is very difficult to decipher if you only see it from the front. So you have to be okay with the fact that even if everybody around you, if they don't approve fully of you, if they don't fully get it, but they're just basically supportive, that's a huge win. You want to surround yourself with people who are basically supportive. I would say that. So I'm quickly going to go over these 7 things again. I'm just going to give you kind of like a summarized version of these 7 things, and then we'll end part 2 of our show today right here. So, 7 ways to know if you have approval addiction in your career or business journey. 1. You feel unsuccessful when your family and friends don't approve of your choices in career or business. 2. If you do not have a huge social media following, you feel less successful than others with huge followings. 3. When you get overlooked for promotions, adulation, events, media coverage, or awards for your work, you feel unsuccessful. 4. You are a die-hard perfectionist. 5. You constantly feel irrational feelings of guilt and shame over really random things. 6. No matter what you achieve, you always keep feeling that you aren't good enough or that you need to prove yourself to someone else. 7. You only feel successful when the people you care about fully get you and back what you do without any reservations. And with that, we are going to conclude part 2 of our show today. When we get back, we're going to talk more about how to actually overcome approval addiction.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. And now we return to our show with your host, Avianne.
In part 3 of our show today, we're going to look at how to overcome approval addiction. In part 2, we determined how we can assess if we have approval addiction. Now we're going to look deeper into some solutions and some ways that we can actually counteract approval addiction. The first way is we have to decide who we allow to speak into our business or entrepreneurial journey. This is very important. A lot of us, especially in the beginning of our journey, we just take all the support, all the advice, all the input, all the help we can get. And that makes sense because we really want to succeed. But along our journey, we want to progressively become more and more picky about who we allow to have a voice in our business or entrepreneurial journey. And we have to make peace with the fact that our friends and family will not always understand our journey. You have to understand that if people have known you their entire lives, chances are that they have formed a very specific, very box-like idea about who you are and what you are, especially people who have known you since childhood or who have known you before you went on your business or entrepreneurial journey. They may not have been aware of these deep passions you've always had to create your own path. And so when suddenly they see you make drastic changes in your lifestyle, or they see you pursue a journey that doesn't quite ring true for them or make sense to them, they are bound to become very protective of you. And they are bound to start telling you things that are not really corresponding to where you're going in your life. So the thing about that is you do not have to cut them out of your life just for having an opinion that may not really correspond to your current season or your journey moving forward. What you need to do in a case like that is just take a step back and maybe just allow them a little less voice. I call it less voice, right? They have to not have such a prominent place in helping you on your journey, specifically in business and entrepreneurship. You have to also understand that the relationships you have in your personal life probably look different from the relationships you will have in your business life. I have certain relationships that are mostly business relationships and other relationships that are mostly personal relationships. I have friends that I really value, that are wonderful people who create a wonderful support system for me in life as I go through the ups and downs of business, which we all face from time to time. They're wonderful. They're a fantastic support system for me, but those are not necessarily the exact same people that I am going to allow to speak into my business decisions and speak into my day-to-day business operations. Then the opposite is also true. People that I ask for business advice and help in my business are not necessarily the same people I'm going to go to when I feel burned out or when I feel just really emotional about something that happened in my business. I do not often mix the two, and there are reasons for that. Sometimes I mix them if it's someone I really know very well and they kind of can fill both roles, but that is very, very rare. Most of the time, you are not going to have the same relationships in your personal life that you're going to have in your business life, and that is okay. It is not an indication that you are being a hypocrite or fake or anything like that. So don't listen to voices who want to speak into your life who say, well, you know, you're kind of not being real because you're separating this out. No, there's wisdom into sometimes separating it out. And you don't always literally want everyone to know your business, right? There are such certain things, certain aspects of what you do and how you do it and why you do it that you're going to share with certain people. Not everyone is going to be able to operate on optimal level in all facets of your journey. So you have to start being very deliberate about who you allow into what part of your journey. Then, still speaking about number one, who is decide who you allow to speak into your business or entrepreneurial journey, right? So, still speaking about that, become accountable to the right people instead of wanting everyone to like you. This is huge. You have to realize that wanting people to like you, wanting to be popular, almost never should be your objective in business. Here's why. Living by approval will mean that you will also wither without it. You cannot live by it because people are fickle and tend to often project their own fears and failures onto you. Very few people are truly consistent, are truly masters of their own destiny and their own emotions in their own journeys. So you have to understand that if you make your decisions based solely on popularity, who likes you, how many likes you can get on social media, those are not very wise ways to make decisions in business. I have my financial advisors always tell me, you cannot use emotion to make investment choices, right? The same rings true for every aspect of business. You cannot make business decisions based upon emotions, and even more so based upon the emotions of other people, because those change. Maybe someone's having an off day and they say something negative about your business, or they give you a bad review online because they're just not feeling it today. Now you go and you make really drastic changes to how you do business because of one person's fickle opinion? Really? That's what you want to do? So you see how that works? You can't really run your business by that. But the opposite is also true, and I should point that out. If you constantly make your business decisions just based upon how popular you are, That's not a good way to do it either. Because maybe you are popular because without even realizing it, you're following some kind of market trend. And then what happens? In a week or two, the trend kind of tapers down and suddenly you don't get likes, you don't go viral, your business isn't noticed anymore, you're starting to drop in your client count. Because you were following a trend and you started going with the trend instead of remaining very focused on your business's main marketing strategies. You see how that works? You cannot completely go trendy for the sake of being popular, and you cannot go completely bonkers and do really erratic things because you're not popular for a little while. You have to have a long-term strategy. Just going off the fly of your pants and just going by the emotions of your clients or other people, those are not good business strategies. You have to stick to your plan. You have to create and innovate things outside of the box. Of course, you need to do that. But do not go so ballistic after what people like and what they don't like and wanting everyone to like you and love you that you lose track of your original vision. Then you have to determine what your true marketing strategy and client responses need to look like. Not everyone needs a huge social media following. Your customers might not even be on social media. For instance, if you sell farming equipment to hardworking farmers, and that is a huge source of your income, those farmers are definitely not going to sit around in an office all day looking at social media. So you may be much more better off to market to them in industry magazines specifically targeted for farmers who actually purchase equipment. You see how targeted that is? That is much better for you to do that than to try and reach someone on social media who may not even have reception and they're out there doing their thing and they're not sitting in front of a computer or looking at a cell phone screen. So you need to understand your market so that you can actually determine, right, as per our second point, determine what your true marketing strategy needs to be, because it's not the same for everyone. I have seen a lot of people trying to appropriate Apple, the company Apple, who makes the cell phones and computers. I've seen a lot of people here in Silicon Valley, where I am, trying to appropriate Apple's marketing strategies onto their own businesses. And I can tell you 99% of the time, it's a total fail, because Apple caters to Apple. They have a very specific strategy that works for their products, that works for their type of clientele. It's not possible to simply take someone else's marketing strategy and apply it to yours and suddenly it's a quick fix for your business. It just doesn't work that way. Number 3, you have to create your own competitive edge where you compete with yourself first. Ditch the need for constant adulation by determining which opportunities will truly help you succeed, and then network and work your way into those only. See, number 2 and number 3, they go together, because you have to create a competitive edge. You have to determine your marketing strategy. You have to focus on your own wins. If you start paying attention to the wins of everyone around you and you forget to actually come up with your own competitive edge, your own marketing strategies, your own unique out-of-the-box experience for your clients, you're playing a losing game. Even if you get overlooked for promotions, even if you get overlooked for awards in your industry, keep your head down, keep at it, be smart. Don't get distracted, don't get discouraged by outside things that really in the long run do not determine your ultimate success. Then, number 4, ditch perfectionism. Not having all your ducks in a row yet doesn't mean failure. I can tell you from my own experience that if you want to go on a journey of building a business, chances are you are almost never going to feel like you have all your ducks in a row. Very simple reason for that. There are so many moving parts to building a business. You are dealing with marketing, you're dealing with sales, you're dealing with manufacturing maybe. There are so many different moving parts that it is probably, especially in the beginning when you are doing a lot of the work yourself and you are wearing many hats, there are going to be many moments when you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed and feeling like you may not have all your ducks completely in a row. These things take time. You are on a learning curve. You need to learn to be patient with yourself and have mercy on yourself. Then number 5, move ahead with your well thought out strategies, even when you do feel irrational guilt and shame. Do it afraid. You are going to experience irrational fears. Sometimes you are even going to experience legitimate fears. What if I invest in this? I am spending so much money on developing this exact product or this exact strategy. Is this even worth it? You're going to drive yourself crazy. And sometimes overthinking leads to analysis paralysis. You can analyze your business strategy to death. You can mold it and cast it to death. But unless you actually step out and take a chance on your idea, you're never going to know if you succeed. Number 6, you have to channel your achievements into tools you can use to expand your success, not into an obsessive need to feel good enough or to prove yourself to someone else. Learn to be happy for others when they succeed. You have to really get the fact that the only way your achievements mean anything is if you channel them into success. I know people with so many degrees. They have master's degrees in this and master's degrees in that and doctorates in this and doctorates in that. But unless they actually use that education for something, it's not really going to help them. You still need to take your achievements and then capitalize on it. Use it. Just standing there getting an applause, that is not going to put money in your pocket. That is not going to advance your business. You need to be able to utilize your wins, utilize your achievements for the long-term goals of success for your business. Then you have to become okay with your family and friends not getting you and decide how to accommodate them into your life without guilt or shame. This number 7 ties back to number 1. You cannot run your business wanting everyone to like you, and you're going to have to make decisions how people fit into your new strategies, your new lifestyle, your new responsibilities. Then remember, if you are a visionary, the chances are that most people around you will not get you. It comes with the territory, and the sooner you become okay with that, the easier it will be for you to calibrate your journey to achieve your goals without personal distractions or professional hindrances. Approval addiction will become a huge obstacle for you, and it will become a huge distraction for you if you're not careful. And I am going to end our show today with our quote for the day. If you just set out to be liked, you will be prepared to compromise on anything at any time and would achieve nothing. And this was said by the famous British stateswoman Margaret Thatcher. I think I have given you a lot to think about today. And I want you to, as you go out and about your business in the next few weeks, pay attention to how you relate to approval addiction. You will start noticing it a lot in people around you, and chances are you're probably going to realize that you have some measure of that going on. And then you beat it with the wonderful strategies I've given you guys today, wonderful tools, so that you can fully live from your creative force. And with that, I am signing off episode 7, How to Overcome Your Approval Addiction. That is our theme for today. Remember this and start practicing it in your business every day so that you can have some huge wins in this area. I'm signing off. This is Avianne from San Francisco. Until next time. Bye.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. Tune in next time as we explore your creative force. Thank you for listening.